God, speak to us in the silence, in humility, in peace, and in challenge. For you are God, creator, redeemer, sustainer, ever to be worshipped and adored. Amen. Vicar, what happens to the baby now? Precious little blonde 5 or 6-year-old with her mother at the end of one of the crib services, tugging at my robe. What happens to the baby now? What happens to the baby? Well, he grows up. He becomes a wonderful man filled with God. He does wonderful things. He shows us what God's kingdom is all about, replies this vicar, quite pleased with himself, short of sleep, managing to string a sentence together that close to Christmas. Blank silence. Incomprehension on the face of mother and child. Vicar starts to wonder what's gone wrong. She means the dolly in the crib. Ah, the dolly in the crib. Well, I suppose it gets put back in the cupboard until next year. In a cupboard? Vicar starts to realise, with panic, with a trembling lip, the eyes filled with tears, that there will be tear-stained pillows and sleepless nights unless he rescues the situation in some way. Put back in a cupboard, left all year in the dark. Little girl on the edge of tears. Christmas is going to be ruined unless the vicar can do something now. Vicar panicked, racks his brains, how to prevent Christmas nightmares, broken dreams. Inspiration strikes. He bends, takes the figure of the Christ child out of the crib, hands it to the little girl. If you promise to look after him very carefully throughout the year and bring him back in time for this service next year, you can look after him. Vicar, quite pleased with himself, turns to face the narrowed eyes of his 2 church wardens, saying, "And where are we going to find another one then?" The child made the link between the plaster figure of the baby in the crib and the real infant that baby represented, because children do that. They haven't lost the ability to make the link. They can take play wonderfully seriously in ways that you and I forget how to do as we grow up. So, of course, that baby was Jesus, and leaving Jesus in a dark cupboard all year was unthinkable. The little 5-year-old, she understood instinctively, although far too young to know what it felt like in reality, what it might feel like to need to care for a child. Holding, caring, being responsible for a child brings out the best and worst in human beings. We're filled with wonder at the length to which parents will go to protect their children. And then we're shocked by stories of neglect, abuse, and cruelty on the news. A woman in my last church once said to me, "I can't stand children." Why? Because they can see straight through you. Exactly. Straight through you. Straight to the heart of you. Straight to the heart of what really matters. From the most basic of needs. Food, warmth, comfort, cuddles, dependence. And then when they grow up, strident demands for fairness, reliability, truth, authenticity. Yes, some people are threatened by children. Some can't cope. Discover terrible inner darkness. But some discover heroism, compassion, reservoirs of love, trustworthiness. It seems to me that God knows what God's up to, giving us a child to help us understand how much we're loved. An old man I gave communion to for Christmas, his mind starting to go, looked up at me. Former headmaster, but his mind now pretty much gone, his memory clouded. I gave him communion. I love you, you know. I love you. But he was still able to match me word for word for the first chapter of John. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was made flesh. That old man, his flesh failing now, keeping him bedbound, but the simplicity of joy, receiving simple gifts of bread and wine, following the cadences of the ancient phrases, the Our Father, a fragment of unleavened bread on his tongue, token much deeper, much more ancient and powerful than any of us could ever imagine, that fragment of bread, that sip of wine. Like the 5-year-old girl, he went straight to the heart of it. He knew what was essential. It released in him a pure joy, kind of recognition, something childlike, something of God, I think. If you've been fortunate enough to have children, you will have known the strength of feelings aroused in you, the powerful love and protectiveness, the best and strongest that you're capable of being, and yes, of course, sometimes when driven to the end of your tether, the worst you're capable of being. So it's no mistake. It's no mistake, really. He talks to us tonight in a child. Not a voice out of a cloud, not a warrior king, not a gorgeous goddess on a shell. The fragile vulnerability of a child. God young, God newborn, God brand new. You and I are offered that child tonight, a gift to take care of throughout the coming year. The child, believe me, is deep within your heart. The child, believe me, is the spark of God's love in every single human being. The child is within you, asking to be nurtured and protected. So will you? Will you look after him through the coming year? Will you help him grow? Will you find him in your brothers and sisters who are hungry and nurture him in them? Will you find him cold in his brothers and sisters who are homeless? Will you, like the true child of God in you, demand justice for his brothers and sisters who are oppressed? Because he needs your love. He needs your attention in the frail, the housebound, the isolated. He will cry out until you listen. And deep down inside you, he'll cry out there as well, in the quiet places of the inner part of you, that part of you that's much more ancient than you are, your soul, given to you by God to look after. Will you find him there as well? Nurture him. He's not interested in how rich you are or how poor you are. He's not interested in how beautiful you are or how plain or famous or unknown. He doesn't need glittery, shiny things like Porsches or your Louboutins or your Botox. He needs your compassion. He needs your care. He needs the warmth of your heart. So that whatever happens, Brexit or not, Trump or not, you'll care and nurture and protect. That'll do. That's all he needs.